my name is Ramirez, Frog Bear. Um, Today's episode is going to be called Coddled and Pandered. Now, what makes me different from you and everyone else is I understand when my reality is coddling me, when it's pandering to me. I understand that not everything is as it seems, and not everything. How do I say this? The world is very conducive to one view, one perspective. The way we view our reality was largely shaped by our education, our parents, and everything that affirms it. From the music we listen to, from the art we like to enjoy. There's a variety of different ways that our reality can be pandered to. I always take that into account. With everything that I research, with everything that I read, and with everything that I do, I understand very clearly when I am being pandered to. I normally know that you, the viewer, doesn't. And this goes to BitChute, Rumble, and everywhere else. Because on YouTube, I think it's only Stat that watches my stuff. What's up, Stat? And we always have to, or at least the way I view the world is, I always reverse engineer that. Anytime a new piece of information comes to me, anytime anything is revealed to me, I understand by a very large degree that my reality is largely being pandered to. I understand that sometimes what I wish to view the world as isn't necessarily what it's supposed to be. Now, I bring this up because there are a lot of idiots out there still on the internet who don't really understand the other side of the argument from a minority's perspective living in America. And the reason why I say this is because there's this like super famous quote that everybody likes to say. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So the oligarchs at one point in time in American history saw the Italians, any undesirable Europeans, Eastern Europeans, anything that looked like them, anything that looked like the aristocrats or the original founders of America, anything that looked like them, they considered an enemy. They didn't like you. And it became to such a point that they wanted to eradicate you. And this was all legislatively. And it wasn't just we're going to attack you culturally. No. Like they were doing research into figuring out what was the most efficient and easiest way of killing off all the undesirable whites. But something changed in American history. More blacks, more Latinos, more Asians, all the other minorities started coming here more and more in droves. And what happened? Well, the aristocrats saw that as a problem. They saw that as a major problem to their infrastructure, or at least the cultural identity that they wanted to portray. So, their enemy, they created another enemy for them, thus allowing this enemy to become their friends, thus creating the movement of the WASPs. But yet, people like to think that the WASP movement it disappeared. It just vanished off of thin air and that it no longer exists, right? But in reality, no. You're still a WASP. You're still absolutely nothing in the eyes of the people who run this country. But yet, for whatever reason, the lower echelons of whites like to think that they have any meaningful degree of influence in this world. And it's like, no. Unless you're a part of the military, unless you're a part of a structure that allows you to climb up these ranks, you're really nothing. And in reality, the agency that you think you have isn't realistic and it isn't real because it was created. This whole thing is a facade created to shape your reality because your original enemy, the oligarchs, deemed you worthy enough of an ally to make you into the enemy of every other minority in the world. Now, the only reason why I bring this up is because I got videos, as usual, to show you. No, where did I put it? Should probably open it up before I move forward.
If you're one
I don't know who this lady is, but it's her language. It's what she's affirming. It's the reality that they wish to shape. It hasn't changed. It's been exactly the same since 1940. Nothing has changed. It's always been the same. So, oops. Doesn't work. Okay, here it is, yeah. A lot of people are not gonna like me for this video.
Wondering why white leftists are so weird and racist right now? They listen to people like this.
If you pay attention, you'll notice patterns. And those patterns are that white people tend to speak first, speak most, do the intellectual work, and then people of color do the emotional work, right?
Right? With absolute no regard of how our reality was shaped. With absolute no regard of the variety of different tactics that were used in order to not suppress, but to design people, to design a culture. Right? For a long time, I thought that the crack epidemic was the first thing that hit the black community, but in reality, it wasn't. I didn't actually account for the fact that in the 1950s, in Harlem, heroin was a thing. And if we know anything about the opium wars, I wonder who had the largest share in opium trade at the time.
And so if I'm noticing that, right, I'm noticing that people of color are really taking risks and being vulnerable and showing themselves, and white people are going into their, philosophical and society and, those distancing moves we make. This might be a good time for me to step in and meet the people of color halfway.
Please don't listen to this lady.
It's time for us to meet them halfway. And in reality, it's just like, no. Right? That is the same exact message that the extreme, and I mean the absolute extreme side of the wingnut, the Wigger National, and that's what they call themselves, all right? I'm not saying that to be disparaging to anybody, but literally I've met a variety of different white people that will call themselves Wigger Nationalist, because they even understand that their own behavior is built on a premise of just, we could say, stupidity. But in reality, why? Why does her speech, or not her speech, but she's essentially affirming a state of reality for both sides? How do you do that? How do you claim yourself to be a leftist, an ally, but yet you're affirming the reality of two different sides that are diametrically opposed to one another, or supposedly supposed to be opposed to one another? And for me, I think of this as like social tactics. It is largely been developed by not the powers that be, but our education, our movies, our television sets, the news, the media. And it always brings me back to the quote of, if I was a rural white class American, and if the only exposure that I ever got for Latinos and blacks was from the television, the first time I would meet one of them in real life, what would I really think, right? I would think that they were violent, belligerent, and what do you call it? Not responsible. I would consider them a problem. But why is that? Because my reality has largely been shaped by what the news has said to me. My reality has largely been shaped by what the television, movies, whatever little exposure I do get out of these things, that would shape my reality. So when I listen to people like this, it just reminds me of this. Actually, I should just show this for fun, to be a bit more lighthearted in the situation.
My outfit is offensive.
Are you Mexican?
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
No, he's not.
I think it reaffirms stereotypes that are offensive to people.
It's
How?
yours.
Oh, rips off his
Do
face?
you find my outfit offensive?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's not your culture.
Because it's not your culture? If we literally lived by that rule set, you would never eat at a Chinese restaurant. You would never eat at a Korean restaurant because it's not your culture. Like, do you understand how stupid that is? And it goes even further. Like, when we have white Americans believe that all white achievement is their own achievement. No, it's not. I dare you to go claim that a French is the exact same as a German, and go tell a German person that they're the exact same thing as an English person, you're going to be met with nothing but hostility, especially if you don't know the soccer hooligan culture. The Greeks would decimate you underneath their boots. But that's the point. The point is that the reality that currently is being played out, or at least the cultural reality that is currently being played out here in America, is coddled and pandered. It is literally designed by propagandists in order to divide, separate, and conquer. That's why the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So all of the white people that were originally the enemy of the original whites that were here in America, who hated the other Europeans who were coming over here and considered them nothing but beneath them. What was it? I think it was the Irish who were considered the worst of the worst at the time because they had the highest crime rate, which is hilarious when you think about it now. But it's crazy, right? People aren't willing to comprehend that factor of, is my reality being pandered? How is my reality, was my reality largely shaped by me? Were these my decisions? Were these my choices? Or were these things that I just heard repeated and I'm just a little parakeet repeating the same exact thing? Now, the whole aspect of this white fragility and all this crap is based on the new psyop that I call, where they consider Hitler somebody who's actually good, and in reality it's like, how is that possible? How would you consider this individual somebody who's good? Actually, I have a video that I just got. In reality, the way I see it, reading history, getting down to the nitty-gritty, they largely do not care about whites. If that was the case, don't you think we would have seen a lower case of injuries amongst that populace? Oh, but that's not what we saw, was it? I'm very mean in this because I have to really address a problem.
Start by secretly.
Okay. Oop. I feel like I just need to address this because I don't want anybody to think that I'm on anyone's side. In reality, I think both sides are idiotic, stupid, unread, uncultured, and unaware to the trap that they're walking into. So we'll end it here with our good friend, controlled opposition, British Alex Jones.
Creating a problem in the world and making sure someone else is blamed for it in the public arena, in the public mind. It could be a run on a currency, it could be a government collapse, at its most extreme it could be a war, because the two world wars in this century were funded, all sides were funded by the same people. Provable. The same people that funded the Allies in the Second World War and funded the Soviet Union also funded Hitler. Through loans from America, known as the Young Plan and the Dawes Plan, and also via the German subsidiaries of American multinational companies. Why would they do that? Why would someone want to fund all sides in a war? What is good is a war? Well, first of all, on one level, it makes vast amounts of money if you're lending money to all sides and you're also selling them lots of arms and all that stuff. But the fundamental reason for a war is to change the nature of post-war society. And what we saw in the First World War and the Second World War were massive global examples of problem-reaction-solution. We are looking at a gigantic contrick before our eyes.
I don't know why I just did an announcement here, but what do you think? I just want to feel like the special boy. Do you realize who you sound like? You sound exactly like the idiots in Israel. The Bible says I'm special. That doesn't mean anything. It's just an old textbook that could probably be disproven if anybody actually looked into what happened during the medieval ages and the rewriting of history during that time, because it had to be kosher with the Catholics. But that's too much for most people. Either way, my name's Ramirez, I'm Frogbear, and hopefully I shattered your reality.